Today, I'll examine how businesses identify public issues and evaluate the gaps between their performance and society's expectations. These gaps can shape how stakeholders judge a company, influencing trust, credibility, and ultimately its corporate reputation. We'll consider the broader business environment and the concepts that help organizations understand these challenges. The central idea is simple. Reputation is defined not only by what a business delivers, but also by how well it responds to what society expects. This lecture is organized around 5 connected questions. First, what makes an issue a genuine public concern, and where do corporate and stakeholder interests collide? Next, we'll map the stakeholder landscape, focusing on who holds expectations and why those expectations matter. We'll then examine the performance gap between what an organization promises and what it delivers. From there, we'll use analysis frameworks to diagnose those gaps before turning to strategic response, how leading companies transform difficult issues into meaningful opportunities. A public issue emerges when there's a meaningful gap between what stakeholders expect from a business and what the business actually does. These issues connect business decisions with broader societal values. They can be economic, such as executive pay inequality, tax avoidance, or pricing practices. They can be social, involving labor rights, diversity, and community impact. And they can be environmental, including carbon emissions, pollution, and the depletion of natural resources. Understanding which dimension is involved helps clarify both the concern and the stakeholders affected. The stakeholder landscape is rarely simple. Modern corporations must respond to a complex web of voices, each bringing different expectations, influence, and ways to apply pressure. Understanding who holds those expectations and how strongly they hold them is the foundation of effective issue identification. It's also important to recognize that stakeholder power is not fixed. Social media has given every group a greater ability to raise concerns, attract attention, and escalate an issue publicly. That means organizations need to monitor not only established sources of influence, but also emerging voices. This slide defines a performance gap as the space between what stakeholders expect and how a company actually behaves. On one side are standards shaped by customers, employees, investors, regulators, and the broader public. On the other is corporate performance, meaning the company's conduct and practice. The gap becomes a risk zone when those two realities move apart. That distance can grow because of neglect, changing social norms, or a crisis, and once it widens, public issues can emerge and escalate quickly. Public issues usually develop in stages rather than appearing without warning. The key opportunity is early detection. During the latent stage, the issue exists but remains largely invisible. It then emerges as media, NGOs, or insiders begin raising concerns. In the current stage, the issue is widely recognized and regulators may become involved. Finally, the crisis stage begins, with reputational and financial damage already underway. Understanding this progression helps organizations monitor signals, engage stakeholders, and respond before a manageable concern becomes a full-scale crisis. This slide presents 3 frameworks for conducting a gap analysis, each offering a different lens on organizational expectations and performance. First, the stakeholder salience model ranks stakeholders by power, legitimacy, and urgency, helping identify whose expectations require the fastest response. The issue management matrix evaluates issues by their likelihood of escalation and potential business impact, guiding where resources should go. Finally, the gap audit compares stated corporate commitments with third-party data, employee surveys, and public sentiment. Together, these tools reveal where commitments' perceptions may not align. This example shows what happens when public promises move faster than measurable results. Many corporations announce ambitious sustainability goals, yet their actual emissions data may tell a very different story. That mismatch is often described as greenwashing, and it represents a widening performance gap between what an organization says and what it delivers. Regulators are responding by requiring verified sustainability disclosures in both the European Union and the United States. These rules are designed to make environmental claims more transparent and narrow the gap through legal accountability. Stakeholder expectations come from more than formal business requirements. Social and cultural norms continuously raise the standard for acceptable corporate behavior, particularly around equity, climate, and transparency. Legal and regulatory standards establish the minimum floor, but stakeholders often expect companies to go further, especially in labor practices, privacy, and environmental responsibility. Finally, industry benchmarks matter. Competitors' actions and voluntary frameworks, including ESG ratings, influence what people view as standard performance. Together, these forces shape how organizations are evaluated and where stakeholders believe they should set the bar. This slide highlights the measurable consequences of credibility gaps. 70% of consumers distrust corporate sustainability claims without third-party verification, making independent validation essential. When concerns escalate into a public issue, recovery can cost 3 times more than addressing the problem proactively. Investor scrutiny is also increasing, with 88% of institutional investors factoring ESG performance gaps into their risk assessments. And the reputational impact can last. After a major public escalation, companies may need an average of 5 years to fully rebuild brand trust. The path forward is clear. Scan early, engage genuinely, measure honestly, and act decisively. Together, these practices turn public issues into strategic intelligence rather than public relations problems. Organizations that follow through with transparent, time-bound commitments can build lasting stakeholder trust and strengthen their competitive resilience.